Well, welcome to this webinar from Diligent. I'm David Howell, the Editor-in-Chief here at Silicon UK. In today's webinar, Unlocking Agility, Transforming Entity Management into a Strategic Advantage, we're considering how entity management from a LegalOps perspective is an important strategic decision for all enterprises. In today's volatile market, agility matters. Companies who, with speed and efficiency, can identify cost savings through entity rationalization that are prepared for mergers and acquisitions and are poised to maintain a growth within their competitive sector. LegalOps teams are the unsung heroes, unlocking strategic alternatives. Having an accurate real-time corporate record of entity accessibility will enable their organizations to act faster than ever before. Yet for the LegalOps department, who are tasked to consolidate and validate global entity data, creating a single corporate record is still primarily a slow manual reconciliation process. Meanwhile, they are increasingly burdened with the repetitive and internal reporting requests of tax, Treasury and Finance, and also looking for strategic opportunities across their corporate structure. By implementing an entity management solution like digital entities allows real-time collaboration. LegalOps teams can transform entity management from an expensive compliance chore into an efficient cross-functional reporting tool for strategic development. I'm delighted to be welcomed by two speakers today, Anna Blanche and Vincent Pacheco. Anna, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure, David. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yep.
I am a legal director at Lapidus Management SARL. We are a captive servicer of the Apollo EPF funds and in Europe, and I've been working with them for the last 13 years.
Thanks for that. And Vincent?
Yeah, sure. I'm Vincent Pacheco. I'm Director of Customer Success for France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Switzerland at Diligent. I joined the company back in 2015, so almost 8 years now. And my role consists of orchestrating, the success of our solutions with our clients, and being an escalation point, and also animating the communities that we work with.
Well, thanks, Vincent. I think for this particular webinar, I think you're both coming from a different angle, and I think the conversation will be very enabling for businesses, because we do want to hopefully give our listeners some practical insights into entity management and how Diligent can help them improve their situation as they see it. Now, I'd like to come to you first, Vincent, for our first question. I think it'd be a good idea to, set the scene. I think a lot of businesses which will be listening to this will be looking at their entity management, absolutely. They're clearly considering where their challenges are, where their pressure points are, and how are they going to resolve the issues that they do have. From your perspective, Vincent, when you're speaking to your customer base, what are those? What are the challenges? What are the pressure points that businesses are feeling within their entity management? I'll be very interested to get a kind of high level view of what you're hearing from the Diligent customer base.
Sure, and I'm sure that Anna will be keen also to contribute to this answer. But there are some key factors that sound obvious, right? There's an increasing a number of requirements and more tension also on the regulatory front.
Sure.
It's been the case for the last 20 years, right? After this wave of scandals like Enron, right, we entered this era of extreme regulatory environment, but we can see intensification of that, especially in territories like Luxembourg, where Anna is based. But with this increasing volume, obviously it becomes very hard, if not impossible, to keep track and cope if you still use manual tools like Excel, right? Mm-hmm. You also have to deal with a big diversity of jurisdictions, right? The bigger the group, the more jurisdictions you have and all the different nuances. You do also have to, cope with, but I would say manage financial and reputational risks, right? Which can be consequences of bad entity management, something we can further develop afterwards. But these are identified risks that need to be anticipated as best as possible. Operational challenges, right? I mean, these sound more generic, but we do always have those operational challenges, i.e., something we hear a lot these days, which is do more with less, right? Less budget and less people. So having the right tools in place is necessary in this regard. And again, more generic, I would say challenges these days, which is security, obviously. Stakeholders, widely speaking, which includes shareholders, right? But stakeholders and the different expectations. And one that I can also think of is, business growth, right? That's a pressure point because obviously you need to deliver on business growth to make your shareholders happy. And you need to ensure that you have the right technology in place to best support this growth, right? Indeed, so these can become a pressure point as well.
Now, for you, Anna, I think the legal issues, the compliance issues, they're all absolute challenges. I think Vincent did a good job of outlining all of those. And for you, is it also the case that there are key challenges and key pressure points across all businesses, or do you also hear that when it comes to entity management, it is very much a bespoke approach, that it's something that each business will have to look at in detail? Or do you see entity management from a legal and compliance point of view, that's the same for everyone? Or is it very much the case that it is quite focused on which business you're in and which sector you're in?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you work in this type of fund investment business, you have so many different investments. You have so many different companies across several jurisdictions. The company groups that you create for each investment is formed by a number of entities. Each entity has a different role. And the compliant, the law and regulatory compliant part depends very much on not only the jurisdiction, but the role that each entity plays in these groups. And those roles are key, that they need to be respected. That you have to keep track of everything that is going on with your companies in detail in order to offer this transparency that investors require and that authorities also require. And this is without even start talking about, for example, regulated entities where you even need more detail, you need more tracking, you need more support for all the information. It's not only information, it's document management. It's as simple as with the requirements that are implemented by law and regulation nowadays. If you don't have an efficient tool, you just can't be in the business. You cannot, because handling this, as Vincent was saying, through Excel or saving documents in different folders somewhere, that's not going to do it. You need to have something that is very intuitive, something that keeps all the information that you need on a day-to-day basis very accessible in a very organized way. So you can offer this transparency to your investors, to authorities, but also you can offer this to the human resources working hands-on so they can actually do their work on a smooth way. Having all the information that they need all the time available to do things right is super important.
Well, absolutely. I think we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. Access is very, very important. Vincent, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, exactly. I think Anna made a very good point as well with regards to the investors, right?
Yes,
which is another pressure point,
indeed.
Which is related to business growth, obviously. But we see these days that investors look at how companies are structuring their governance, right? And this includes how equipped they are, right? So we see today that this is one of the factors that investor will look at when they want to make their decisions.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yes, absolutely. So how you are managing I guess what we're talking about is specific data, aren't we? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about how are you managing specific groups of data as it relates to entities. That's an interesting one there, Vincent. That didn't kind of occur to me that when we're looking at, in fact, we're going to talk about the landscape in a second. It's an important one to, I guess, understand that how you are managing entities today is actually a differentiator for your business. If you're doing it well, that makes your business very attractive if you're maybe looking at a merger, looking at an acquisition. That's an absolute given that how you do entity management is a value proposition for your business.
Exactly.
Now, what I wanted to talk to next, I guess, we've talked about the sort of high level. That's kind of very clear about how we're doing entity management, why it's important. But of course, entity management doesn't exist in isolation, doesn't it? It's not a thing in your business which does not connect to everything else, because it does. I'll be very interested also to get your views on, I guess, where businesses are. We're now looking to the future, how businesses are looking to transform, how they're looking at their digital transformation in particular. How do you see that fitting with, I guess, the wider business market? You've already touched on it a little bit about let's do good entity management makes us a good company. But how do you place that within the wider business context? Is entity management now an absolute part of business strategy, particularly when you're looking at the landscape which you're trading within? You have to do entity management well if you're going to be competitive in your marketplace. Anna, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's as simple as, if you don't have the right tool to manage your entities, to put all the information and everything that you need on a day-to-day basis to have your human resources to do their work, you cannot have as many entities as you need to grow in the business, to protect your investments, to protect the business activity of your companies, because you need the capability to track everything that is going on and to track it in detail. It goes from just knowing how many signatories are going to bind a company to third parties, to what are the compliance, law and regulation rules that certain company has to comply with in certain jurisdictions, depending on the role that company has. It goes from knowing how many board meetings you have to hold in a year and what you have to approve in them, and having records of all of that activity that is happening, to knowing your own group policies and make sure that they are being implemented and that you can track that so you can prove it in case necessary. So it's, you either have a good tool that is intuitive so your employees feel comfortable with using it or going to it to get the information that they need, or you're just dead in the water. You cannot handle this amount of information and documentation without technological tools. It's just that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's an absolute given. For you, Vincent, when you're talking to your customer base, are they placing the entity management within the larger business landscape? It's not just an item on their sheet to tick off. Is it really a case of looking at where your business is in your particular sector, who your competitors are? All of that stuff is absolutely connected to entity management. You have to look at the wider business landscape as well.
Yeah, and the first thing I like to say is that digitization has not stopped, right?
Yeah, sure.
This was like top of mind at board level and executive level.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's say 5 years ago, it was all about digitizing, right?
Yeah.
But this process is a continuous process that has not stopped.
Yeah.
In fact, our feeling is that a number of functions got digitized early, like supply chain, the sales functions, everything to do with billing, and even HR. It's almost like legal was one of the last functions to
absolutely
to benefit from this process of digitalization. But in any case, this process has not stopped, right? In all those functions I've mentioned. Then the landscape is quite clear. What's the context and why is entity management critical in this continuous digitization? Where regulation, we mentioned that a number of times already, but we can only reiterate how important this is in the context. We won't talk about the pandemic, right, and its consequences, but the reality is that there's more remote workers and also more international businesses. So there's this need of being able to work remotely from home or from different offices, but having that capacity to coordinate and collaborate more efficiently. And there's always the reality of costs as well, right? So there's a context of making the right decisions, the right investments, being I would not necessarily say cost conscious, but cost efficient, right? In a good way. But the reality is that we also need to demonstrate return on investment, right? So when it comes to governance, it's quite difficult sometimes because it's not the most tangible function when you think of billing and those things. It's just numbers, right? But the reality is that you need to demonstrate return on investment.
Yes, I think that's true. Yes, all of this clearly has to go into a larger piece of strategic thinking, and that's kind of what I wanted to touch on with you, Anna. Is Vincent just mentioned that the LegalOps were kind of the last two to get digitized. I think that's absolutely true. But now we have a situation where I guess all elements of business are on a journey to become more digital and to become a part of the strategic development of their businesses. Now, when you're speaking to to clients, etc., are they placing entity management, particularly from a LegalOps point of view, absolutely on their strategic roadmaps? It's definitely part of that conversation, maybe when it wasn't maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with both of you. The legal part is the last part that has actually come to be digital, right? Because I guess this is something that is with lawyers. We love our paper. And we love to have it in hand, and it's hard for us to figure out how to move from what gives us this security of having everything in the hand to have it in the screen, to have it in a monitor. It's a hard part. It is challenging, but it's doable. And I know it because I've been working in litigation before working on corporate. And when you actually have a good tool and you just go into it and you see it's intuitive and it's actually making it easier for you, then you don't want to move out from that. The real challenge to get lawyers in digital is to get them talking to the programmers, to the IT parts, get the lawyer actually being able to convey the message of what would make my job easier and how you can help me. And these two parties, connecting and understanding each other and working together. That's basic to me. And that's been also part of what I've done in this past years in my profession. These tools are absolutely necessary. And yes, I mean, I don't think anybody that is planning to go into an investment as such, even if you're talking about a group of 5 or 6 companies, can do that without having a support tool or a third party that has one, because you're going to need to track so many things that are going to be happening all the time from a corporate perspective, that if you don't have the right tool there, you're not going to be able to. At some point, something's going to fail. You need to have your information.
Yes, I think that's right. It's almost like we've entered a period or an era where I guess when we're talking about, say, mergers and acquisitions, it kind of focused on finance, wasn't it? It was kind of, what's that going to cost us? Is it going to be the right price? That kind of conversation. Legal ops were kind of, we'll do the legal stuff later. We'll get the paper and we'll sign the papers. It'll be fine. But these days, of course, legal ops is absolutely the first kind of thing they look at. Can we do this? Can we afford to do this? We want to buy that company. But what's it going to look like legally? What sector are they in? Let's look at the compliance issues. And that's absolutely where legal ops comes into its own, isn't it? That's where you need a tool that'll allow you to answer those questions, which kind of wasn't really asked a few years ago. So do you feel, Anna, this is, I think we'll stay with you for this one. Do you feel that entity management from a legal ops point of view is absolutely central? You have to build almost everything else around that because it touches on so many parts of your business.
Yes, absolutely. We are the ones that are more familiar with law and regulation. We know what we need to have handy. We need what we have the experience, or we should have the experience of what's going to be required from us if there is an inspection from an authority, or what do you need to show when you are running a due diligence for a merger, for a sale, for a purchase. You know where to look at, so you know what information you need to have. So when this information is properly organized, it's Q&As that happen during a due diligence for a merger or any other transaction are way easier, right?
Okay.
So even if it's hard, as I said before, for lawyers to picture having everything in digital, at some point we've had to realize that either you have it in digital or you don't have it, because it's too hard. It would slow the process too much. The negotiations would be eternal if you cannot, come back and forth with questions and answers and move the transaction forward. So I mean, it's clear that this is what we as lawyers and corporate handlers do best to know where we can use and how we can use this for the benefit of the stakeholders. Yes.
Absolutely.
I wanted to jump on this and say that the very existence of the legal ops function is a very good indication as to how things have evolved recently. Right. When you think about it, I mean, entity management is not new, right? Our tools, formerly known as Blueprint, One World, was created in the late 90s. So it's not like a new topic, right? To have good entity management in place. In fact, we thought that the market was relatively mature when I joined the company, but we've seen a regain of interest in the last 3-4 years. So we have an increasing number of conversation and business, which is good for us, but that shows the trend, right? And I think it shows how companies position governance and good governance at the center of their strategy, and realize how critical it is, and that entity management is just the foundation of a well-structured and efficient governance strategy, which is key to perform as a business. But again, the fact that the legal ops function is a relatively recent creation, right? It came from the US, and I wouldn't know the dates more than me, but maybe 5 years ago it came to the UK, and in the continent it's slightly more recent. It's like 3-4 years old, right? Sure. Same thing with something very interesting that Anna mentioned, which is the relationship that the legal department can have with the IT department, right? And we've seen as well relatively new functions around IT legal, IT risk, which shows that there is definitely a trend here.
Well, you've also mentioned that just a second ago, how I guess entity management makes business more efficient, etc. I think you have some slides for us which are going to talk about, I guess, strategic advantage, and it kind of puts our previous conversation, I think, into a little bit more context of why a business should be paying attention to this, and why a business should be evolving their tools forward for entity management. So if we can share your screen, Vincent, you can talk us through those few slides that you have. We can have a conversation about what efficient entity management looks like, I guess.
The central matter here is about operational excellence, right? It's very much what all companies, organizations should aspire to. It's hard sometimes to get the internal tractions, to get the investment, to get things implemented, but we should all aspire to operational excellence. So what we try to do here, and we've just used one of the many workflows that an entity management software can help improving. So we're focusing on reporting here. But we try to illustrate the difference between the workflow without an entity management system and with such system, right? So if we focus here on the current state and internal entity information requests, we can see very clearly that they are quite time consuming and they involve a number of steps and stakeholders along the way, which, as Anna mentioned earlier, take time and does not help the business to be agile, right? So this, I won't talk through each different steps, and I think this is quite visual and helps to understand.
Yes, I think that puts over really what this conversation's about, how complex a manual entity management system can be. I think there's even more steps within the steps. They could get so complex that, you could get lost very, very easily. And as Anna mentioned, you end up with, mountains of paperwork, which you have to wade through.
And then if we compare to what it would look like with an entity management software, again, we try to be quite visual, but there is this concept of getting this data centralized, well, secured as well, right? But accessible via self-service. So having the capacity to autonomously input the data, but also have the capacity to access it in a self-service mode, right? It's having this central depository, the Bible, if you will, of all the corporate data in one place, accessible to the relevant people. And one important aspect as well, which I'm sure Anna would agree to, which is control over who can see what. So these were just very visual illustrations of what entity management can do. And only one of the many workflows, right? But we thought it was quite relevant to show this.
Yeah, absolutely. From that, Anna, I'll be very interested in, I guess, from your point of view, if you have your sort of legal ops head on or your hat on, for you, is there just one or two things which are absolutely core? I think that last slide was very, very intuitive. From a legal ops point of view, when you put entity management tools in place, are there instant gains? Are there certain areas of, I guess, the legal process for entity management that instantly become more efficient, instantly become easier to manage? Have you seen that time and time again, where you've put these systems into businesses and the legal ops team have gone, it's like Christmas. It's fantastic. How do we live without this tool before? Is that often the response that you get?
It is often, and not always. I take into account that I've worked with different tools, and sadly, when there is this communication I referred to before between lawyers and programmers doesn't happen, you can end up with very bad tools that are not really helpful. And that's super dangerous because people would try to go back to their, Excels and folders somewhere. And that doesn't help the business. So
absolutely.
The intuitiveness of the tool that you're using, actually this Christmas, as you say, that happens when you actually are finally, as a lawyer, convinced to go into a digital tool and try it and use it. And it works. And you don't need to ask anybody, how do I find this here? Because it's intuitive. You just get in and and it makes sense. You just go into it and you say, oh, the document I'm looking for is actually here. or here is the information that I need for on my day-to-day basis, when I need to collect signatures, when I need to send an invite for a board meeting, when I need to find the registration number of this company in France. It's that only happens whether this communication happens and the tool is intuitive. Otherwise, it's all the opposite. It backfires on you when you try to implement a tool that is not as I'm describing it, or where people has to all the time be, going back to the IT support team because they cannot find something or they don't know how to use a feature. Then they go back to their ways. They don't want to use it. You end up with only 1 or 2 employees that are actually putting the information in there because they are being paid to do that. But nobody's going to go in there to find things. So what people are going to do in those cases is go to the person that is putting the information in there and ask them to find the information and send them to them. And then so much hands-on work from human beings generate mistakes. And it's bad for the business. It's just bad. So having the proper tool, the intuitive tool is key.
It's exactly where our role lays as well, right? Is to accompany this deployment and make sure it's successful. And this is a process, right? The reality is that it's a process to get that Christmas tree that you mentioned, David, right? You have to build it, to get internal tractions, get people enabled. But again, the goal, and if you get there, that Christmas tree is really operational excellence. It's trust in data, which is extremely important for decision making. Trust in data, because then your decision makers will need to do real time, best informed decision making, right? Absolutely. And it's all about further down the road, business agility, cost savings, return on investment, right?
Do you often also find it's very interesting? I mean, that's your sort of outline, Anna, how a tool has to be intuitive. I always think the parallel is with security tools. You make a security tool too hard to use, and everyone will try and get around that. They will simply not use it. They'll go back to their old ways of working because it's just too hard to use. So entity management, because it's so important for businesses, it's such an important core. It has to be right. The tool has to be intuitive. It has to be easy to use, and it has to be fed the correct data, because there is that thing out there where some people look at data and go, well, can I trust that information? Is it accurate? Can I base my decisions on that? And of course, when we're talking about LegalOps, the decisions LegalOps are making are very important. So they have to be based on solid information. So it's often also the case with these tools that you're looking at intuitive interfaces, very easy to find information, but the information is being fed, and the data also, that's also an important step, that you choose the right data sets. You can analyze what the data is being fed to these systems, so the end users can be confident that the decisions they make are based on the correct information. That's a very important point to get across.
And that is one of the hardest things to achieve. It's very hard to achieve that because, as I said before, you depend a lot on human beings to feed that source of information, right? So, and humans make mistakes. So one thing that is super important to me when using these tools and talking to the resources that we use to feed these tools is when you put information in there, every single piece of information that you're feeding to this tool, you have to support with documentation. Because I might be getting wrong the number of registration for the company in some company's registry, but if I can accompany that information with the document, with the RCS excerpt, where the number is, a person like me that knows that human mistakes happen would, not only look into the registration number as it shows in the feature, but also go into the document and check that that information is correct. It's not ideal, but you need to be aware that human mistakes happen. The other thing that I always recommend to people working with these tools is that once or twice a year, they do a data quality control. So you just, these tools don't only save information and documentation. they also produce reports. So you gotta make sure that your tool can give you a full report of all the information and documents that you have in there. So from a simple, look at this report, you can tell if there is information missing, if there is documentation that should be there supporting certain information missing, and you can, do a quality control procedure in which, these documents are eventually open, and you just make sure that the information that you have there accessible for everyone to see as soon as they get into the tool is accurate, it is updated, is necessary. I hope for a day in which we get a tool that can just gather the information from the documents automatically without the need for the hands to type it in the keyboard. But I mean, we're not there yet, right? But I'm hoping for that day. Then it's going to be awesome. And then, and that's the only thing that could actually, get you a fully trustworthy source of information. Yeah.
I'm taking notes, Anna.
Well, we still have those horrible people getting in the way, so I'm afraid we're nearly there. I mean, we're moving in that direction. I think machines will help us to do a lot of this in the future, absolutely. But the end user is still us. It's still humans. We're still fallible, but we can minimize the issues with good tools. I think that's the point. Now, I wanted to, I guess, close this with a sort of, I guess, a look at the stakeholders. I think we've talked a lot about the end users and people. A tool is a tool, but a tool, of course, is for people. It's for you and I, for LegalOps to do their job more efficiently, more accurately. That's what it's for. That's the core for this. Moving forward. How do you see that developing? We're talking about sort of entity management. Do you feel we're going to enter an era where it's, I guess, what can we call it? We could call it entity democratization. We talk about a lot about data democratization, giving you and I access to the information we need to do our jobs. Do you feel we're moving absolutely to a point where entity management, particularly from a LegalOps point of view, does become like a democracy, that every user can look at a system, so the digital tool, for instance, and say to the diligent tool itself, I need to do this. Can you help me do this? The information is available. Do you feel we are absolutely moving in that direction? And the tools we have today, particularly the one that you guys have developed, absolutely gives us that level of democratization, that it gives us the tools to be better LegalOps. Is that a journey we're on? Do you feel we're getting there? And it's absolutely something that businesses are moving towards.
I'm happy to answer this. I mean,
feel free.
Sure. I mean, I definitely think we are. And it's not, I wouldn't say, it's not exclusive to entity management. When you look at tech trends, broadly speaking, you can see key trends like consolidation, right? Something we experienced like 20 years ago with ERPs. Good point. More recently with CRMs, right? So now we can see, obviously, at our level at diligence, consolidation, what's called now GRC. Sorry for the acronyms, but GRC stands for governance, risk, and compliance, right? So we can see, this trend of consolidation in many different tech fields, not just ours. And so I would say it's governance as well, more than just entity management. There's a tech trend around self-service in many different tools. We can see now that self-service became extremely important. And let's say the collaborative model as a whole, right? Since the pandemic, it was already a process before, but the pandemic has accelerated the development of collaborative tools. I mentioned earlier that people get to work together from different places. So I would say that this democratization, sorry if I say it wrong, but
that's correct, Yeah.
I think it's not exclusive to entity management. It corresponds to a tech trend, and entity management obviously is on the same boat.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And for you, Anna, just to sort of round this off, obviously you're on the sharp end. Use the tools all the time, and you've been key for the development of these tools. Are you confident that, from a LegalOps point of view, that the tools like the the tool that Diligent has developed is absolutely moving LegalOps in the right direction? That it is becoming a more efficient part of a business. It absolutely supports stakeholders, and moving forward, if you do it right and you choose the right tools, it does give your business a competitive advantage. That's really part of what this conversation is. Do you feel that that's where we are with these kind of tools?
Absolutely. I mean, it's actually it's the only thing that you can do if you really want nowadays your business to grow. When you are working in this market, you need to have a tool like the one you guys provide, where all the information is safe, it's organized, is accessible, is ready to show. Otherwise, you just can't handle the size of the company groups that you have to manage to make these investments to work in this market. I cannot overstate the importance of having a tool like the one you guys provide to manage your business. Is imprescindible. You cannot go without.
Super. Well, everyone, I think we've run out of time for this one. I think it's been a fascinating conversation about entity management, particularly from a LegalOps point of view. We're dragging the LegalOps into the digital world, absolutely, and what that means for compliance, what it means for data management, and I guess how you can improve all of those elements and move your business forward. I think if you do your entity management well, it absolutely delivers a competitive advantage. It does. It's something that I think is an absolute given. If you do it well and you choose the right tools. Now, everyone, if you'd like to learn more about Diligent and how their entity management tool can help you, then please do visit their website, which is diligent.com. Until the next time, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Anna.
Thank you.
Your sense. And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye. Goodbye.